Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight to it. Today's lesson is going to be about Genesis chapter 48 and the promises and the Gentiles. And we're doing this lesson because there's a lot of confusion in who's the Gentiles, mostly in the quote unquote New Testament. And we did this lesson, well, a very similar lesson before. It's been about a year, and it's not posted on our YouTube channel. So I felt it was time again. You can never talk about the Gentiles too much, the law, and the law not being done away with. These are the types of things that you can never talk about too much, at least I feel like, because that's some of the biggest stumbling blocks that our people have. But back to the lesson again. We're going to follow the scriptures from almost the beginning and see if everything coincides. We're going to see if the quote unquote New Testament is actually different from the Old Testament or not. So let's go ahead and jump on in. Let's get Genesis chapter 12 and verse 1.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 12 and verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee.
Okay, so we all know Abraham, right? Let's just keep going.
Verse 2. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing.
Okay, so this is a promise the Most High is making to Abram, aka Abraham, okay, to make him a great nation, to bless him, make his name great. All right, let's get verse 3.
Verse 3. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
All right. So, one could read this, and I know how it appears. It says, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. This appears that all families of the earth is referring to all nations of people. So the Most High is saying, through Abraham, all nations are going to be blessed. However, this is not what's exactly going on here, which we're going to get here soon. And the reason that we already can tell that before even moving forward, how could there be any wicked if literally everybody on earth is going to be blessed? Who's there to curse then? So you have to concede that this does not literally mean all families, as in literally everyone on earth is going to be blessed through Abraham. You can't say, well, no, it's talking about those that are righteous, and well, then that means that this is obviously referring to a select amount of people. You have to concede to that then. All right, let's keep going though. Let's get this promise, this same promise, because it was, told to Abraham and his seed, several times. Let's get Genesis chapter 17 and verse 1.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 17 and verse 1. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect.
Okay, perfect. Let's keep going.
Verse 2. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly.
Okay, so that's one word I want us to pay attention to here is multiplied. Okay, Abram or Abraham, the Most High is making a covenant between Abraham and his seed, okay, that they will be multiplied exceedingly. We're going to see that again, so keep that in mind, multiply. All right, let's keep on.
Verse 3, and Abram fell on his face, and the Most High talked with him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations.
Now we know that Abraham was also the father of Ishmael, and we know Ishmael actually was the progenitor of the Ishmaelites. So one could think, okay, this is the father of many nations. This is talking about, the Ishmaelites and things of that nature. That's not the case either, but we'll get that. Let's keep going.
Verse 5, neither shall thy name anymore be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee.
All right. So like we said, let's keep going.
Verse 6, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee.
We're about to see that that's pretty much that same verbiage being used. Okay. Fruitful, that's another word. Multiply, or the multitude. The fruitfulness, this is something you need to pay attention to. Okay, and kings shall come out of thee. So this is not talking about the kings that come out of Ishmael. Okay, well, we're gonna see. Let's keep going.
Verse 7, and I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations, for an everlasting covenant to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee.
Okay, so now we see that there is a specific people here, an everlasting covenant that the Most High is setting up here with the seed of Abraham, that the covenant is going to be established with. Okay, now we're taking some time here to, really establish some things. So, bear with me here, because we have to get these accounts, because it's going to pay off when we get to the New Testament. Okay, so we can't forget these things here. Let's get really quickly another account. Let's get Genesis chapter 18 and verse 17 and 18.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 18 and verse 17. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him.
Okay, so again, all nations of the earth. So does that mean every single person? Again, who's wicked then? Why does Christ need to come back if all nations of the earth, meaning literally everyone on planet Earth, will be blessed by Abraham and his seed? Okay, that's something to think about, but we're going to prove all of this, though. That's not enough. That's nowhere near enough. All right, let's get Genesis. Again, we're getting the same promise because we're really trying to, get this point down. Let's get Genesis chapter 22 and let's get 17. Let's jump straight into it.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 22 and verse 17. That in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies.
Okay.
And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice.
Okay, and I see shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Again, we keep seeing it. Now, let's get this two more times before we're done here. Because that was to Abraham. Now let's see this same promise being passed down to Isaac. Let's get Genesis chapter 26 and verse 1.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 26 and verse 1. And there was a famine in the land. beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar.
Okay, keep going.
And the Lord appeared unto him and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of.
Okay, it's the Most High dealing with Isaac, which is Abraham's son. Okay, and let's see what he says. This is Abraham's son, Isaac. Let's see what the Most High said unto him.
Verse 3, Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father.
Okay, we got an oath. This is the oath we kept reading about. We went over enough times, and now we get that the Most High made an oath. He made a promise with Abraham and his seed. But look, he's talking to a specific son. He's not telling this to Ishmael. Okay, this promise is with the seed line pertaining to Isaac and his seed. Let's get verse 4.
Verse 4, And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
Okay, we see the same thing again. All right. So now we see also, I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of the heaven. Where have we seen this before in scripture? All right, I will give unto thy seed all these countries. Now we seeing land being promised as well. Okay. Like in verse 3. So we got land, we got multiplication, we got fruitfulness. All this is promised to Abraham and Isaac. Now let's get Genesis chapter 35. Reason we're going through all this, bear with me, it's going to heat up. Let's get Genesis chapter 35 and verse 10 and 11.
The book of Genesis chapter 35 and verse 10. And the Most High said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel.
Okay, so this is Isaac's son. So this is Abraham's grandson, Jacob. Now his name is Israel. Jacob means supplanter. Okay, one that takes or supplants a blessing away, like he did from Esau, which it was already, predestined to be for him anyways. Now his name is Israel, the prince of the power. This is representing him now coming into the knowledge of what we today say coming into the truth. This is essentially what's happening with Israel here, or Jacob. All right, let's get verse 11.
Come on, verse 11. And the Most High said unto him, I am Yahweh Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins.
Be fruitful and multiply is what the Most High said unto Isaac. A nation and a company of nations. A nation and a company of nations. Kings shall come out thy loins. So this is what we kept reading about here. All the families of the earth being blessed. The covenant being established for the seed. Look, I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. It was not referring to Abraham's other son or anything like that. It was just referring to that specific seed line. The promise was only referring to that specific seed line. So the Most High was only dealing with a specific, set of sons that came, it stemmed all the way from Adam all the way down here to Jacob. Okay, that's it. Let's get verse 12.
Come on, verse 12. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed after thee I will give the land.
So we see land being promised as well. Kings being promised to come out of loins of Isaac. A nation and a company of nations being promised to come out of Isaac. Now, here are all the things that we know, we understand, but when it comes to the quote unquote New Testament, it's like we forget. We think the Most High words don't mean anything anymore. We think these words aren't going to come to pass anymore, and that's not the case. All right, and we're going to prove that. We're going to prove that without a shadow of doubt. Okay, let's get Baruch in the Apocrypha. Baruch chapter 2 and verse 34.
It's the book of Baruch, chapter 2 and verse 34. And it reads, and I will bring them again unto the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they should be lords of it. And I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished.
Hey, you see anything about Esau here? I don't see him mentioned in the promises. Am I tripping?
La
I don't see Ishmael listed here in the promises. Am I bugged out?
La
You know, I don't see any of those two men I just mentioned in any of their progeny listed. There's a reason for that. This is not an error. It's not a mistake. This is all who the promises were given to. There's nothing you can do about it. Okay, it's nothing I can do about it or anyone else. The Most High is dealing with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob being Israel. Israel and his descendants, the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, that's who the land is promised to. That's who all the promises are given to. Okay, that they will be increased and will not be diminished. Okay, that's it. Now, again, we get to the New Testament and we think there's something new going on the earth. Like the Most High just said this, he was just playing. You know, he had kind of just said something real quick. He was having a good time and, you know, kind of just threw it out there just to see what happened. He forgot. You know, like the Most High just say stuff like regular people. Most High is not a man that he could be a liar. You understand? Like he don't say these things for no reason. But again, we got to get the proof though. Now I'm just talking until we get the proof. So let's do that. Let's get, and this is where it lies at right here. Genesis chapter 48. When you understand this, there becomes no more dispute about who the quote unquote Gentiles are in the New Testament. This was never a debate. It's not about interpretation. It's not, oh, well, you see it this way, but it could be this, or, you know, Old Testament was this, brother. And all that goes away when you actually understand the scriptures. But you apply the precepts. So you go by what's actually written, not what men thinks. You understand? Let's get Genesis chapter 48 and verse 1.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 48 and verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, behold, thy father is sick. And he took him with his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim.
When you understand Manasseh and Ephraim, that's also a huge indicator of exactly who the Gentiles are and who they were in the quote unquote New Testament. Okay, really quickly, let's just do this real quick. Now, at this time, anytime you would have someone, you know, any man of prominence, his name, what you call a nomen omen, I believe, when your name means something. Like, for example, Manasseh means causing to forget, or one that's forgotten. Okay, like Noah means rest. Okay, you would have these nomen omens for all these men at this time period. Okay, and Manasseh's also, he's the son of Joseph. So he's, you know, one of the 12 tribes, at least him and his progeny is. Okay, Manasseh, that's a tribe of Israel. Now that's to cause him to forget. And then Ephraim is what? Double ash heap, or I shall be doubly fruitful. Remember, that was part of the promises. okay, that we would be fruitful, or Jacob was given this promise to be fruitful and to multiply. You think this is a coincidence that, one of his offsprings, well, not, that wasn't one of his offspring, that was from Joseph, but that through this promise he would be doubly fruitful? I mean, you think this is a coincidence? It's not, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because all of this is going to add up. We doing a lot of foundation building, but it's necessary so we can really drive the point home later on. Let's get verse 2.
Verse 2. And one told Jacob and said, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed.
Let's keep going.
And Jacob said unto Joseph, Yahweh Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me.
Okay, that's what we read about in Genesis chapter 35. We have the nation and the company of nations, and kings shall come from thy loins. In Luz, which is the almond tree, we talked about that, at least in the last lesson I did, in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Okay. And I got more on that too, as far as the almond tree and that being symbolic for us, but let's just keep going. Verse 4.
Verse 4. And said unto me, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of people, and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession.
Now, this one verse alone, if you understand what this one verse alone is saying, now you unlock exactly what's going on in the New Testament from this one verse alone. Maybe saying, brother, I don't see all that. Where are you getting all that from? Let's take a further examination here. It says, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make thee and I will make of thee a multitude of people, a multitude. Remember, we saw the word multiply. This is part of the promises that this seed of Jacob or Israel will multiply or be fruitful. And I will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. Now, my question for this scripture here, or this promise rather, is has it came to pass yet? Has it come to pass? Has the children of Israel been given the land that they were promised for everlasting possession? Is the children of Israel dwelling in a land right now for an everlasting possession? How could that be when men are made of flesh? So there's no way that you can have men have anything for everlasting, not in a mortal body. So long story short, this prophecy here is actually not even came to pass yet. Okay. The Most High has made, there's plenty of promises and prophecies that are written in the beginning of the Bible that actually have not came to pass yet. And this is one of them. So you can't just look past this. It says an everlasting possession. What is this talking about? It's talking about the kingdom of heaven. Okay. That's going to be in the land of Israel. It hasn't happened yet. So once you understand that, you'll start to see what's going on in the quote unquote New Testament. Okay, but let's prove this hasn't happened yet. This land has not been given to the seed of Israel for an everlasting possession. Okay, because you might say, well, no, didn't Moses deliver the children of Israel out and they went to the land? Yeah, they did. Let's get Joshua chapter 21 and let's get straight to verse 43.
It's the book of Joshua, chapter 21 and verse 43. And it reads, And the Most High gave unto Israel all the land which he swore to give unto their fathers, and they possessed it and dwelt therein.
So we see the children of Israel did get into the land. Okay, but wasn't for an everlasting possession though. That's the thing. Let's get Joshua chapter 24 and verse 13. Now, just to say this really quickly, this is when we were talking about, Manasseh and Ephraim, some time has passed by here in the book of Joshua. This is after, the Exodus. You have Moses delivering the children of Israel out of Egypt. So we taking a history backslide here so we can see exactly what happened. Okay. Joshua chapter 24 and verse 13.
God, it's the book of Joshua, chapter 24 and verse 13. And I have given you a land for which ye did not labor, and cities which ye built not, and ye dwell in them. Of the vineyards and olive yards which ye planted, not do ye eat.
Okay, let's get verse 14.
Verse 14. Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord.
Okay, so the idols have been worshipped ever since before the flood, on the other side of the flood. But the point here, though, is so the Most High, when he gave us these promises of the land and the multiplication and the fruitfulness, it came with stipulations. Man, he wasn't just going to give the children of Israel the land and that's it. You also, the whole contract here, or the covenant, was to also fear the Lord, okay, and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the false idols, the false gods. Okay, that was part of the deal. That's how you get everything that was promised, that we took all this time to go through, all these promises from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob. So you don't just get the land, for doing nothing. You get to just worship where you want to worship. No, you got to worship the Most High to receive these promises. Okay, you're not giving things out for free. Like they try to convince you in a quote unquote church. It's already done. You can do whatever, pretty much, and the Lord's still gonna love you. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works at all. That's why we're in the condition that we are in right now. All right, let's get verse 16.
Verse 16. And the people answered and said, Yahweh forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods.
Let's keep on.
For the Lord our power, he is that brought us, he is it is that brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed.
So that was the Most High that got our people out of Egypt. Okay. So again, the point here is that we were given the land, but what did we really do with it? What happened? We were commanded to keep the Most High statute, laws, and commandments. One of them being, to fear the Lord and the Lord only, to put no God before the Most High God. Okay. And the people agreed. Okay. The people, they signed this covenant. Okay. Joshua made a covenant with the people that day and set a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. Okay. But what happened from there? Because remember, these promises still got to come to pass, no matter what, because it didn't say, that this wouldn't happen or this would happen, and then you may do this and it may not happen if you don't do this. This is still going to happen. So we got to see, what took place in the Bible. It actually took place in the Bible. Now we're going to skip all the way down to the time of King Solomon. So the nation of Israel was given the land. We dwelt there. You had the time of the judges, and then you had the times of the kings. Okay. So we fast forward here. Let's keep the promises in mind and everything. Let's get 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1 and 2.
God, it's the book of 1 Kings, chapter 11 and verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites,
Okay.
of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they would turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto those in love, unto these in love.
So Solomon, and just because, by association, the nation of Israel as well, did not keep this covenant that Joshua made with the people, that Moses made with the people. We started to not keep that covenant. And there was consequences for not keeping the covenant. Okay, one being that, let's get verse 13.
Come on. Verse 13.
Verse 11 first.
Verse 11. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it unto thy servant.
So rend is the rip. Okay, it's the tear apart. All right, that's what happened. So the kingdom got torn apart. Again, this is important. We just look past this because it doesn't tickle our ears. We want to read Psalms chapter 23 or something that everybody knows, John 3:16, whatever the case is, that scriptures that everybody knows, but then we want to get down to what actually happened to get a true understanding. But this is what you have to do if you really want to understand what's going on in the New Testament. Okay, you got to understand the first 65% of the book first, before you can go down to the end. What movie can you start at the end and then understand exactly what happened? You can't do that, because the New Testament is not even 50-50. Like the Old Testament makes up most of the Bible. Between that and Apocrypha, without that, you finish. You won't get the understanding. All right, so if you walk around with a quote unquote New Testament only book, that's an abomination. It's really embarrassing, honestly, because that shows how much respect you have for the Most High, which is none. All right, let's get verse 12.
Verse 12. Notwithstanding in thy days, I will not do it for David thy son. Salakia. Notwithstanding in thy days, I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son.
All right.
Howbeit, I will not rend away all the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen.
That's the tribe of Benjamin. So now we see a tear. All 12 tribes used to be together. Now you have a tear. You have a rend that the Most High told Solomon that he was going to do. And it wasn't for David. He would have done it in his days. But the Most High also made some promises to David as well. And that's the only reason that Judah, the southern kingdom, they got to keep certain things, is because of the promise that the Most High made to David. Because not only does all words that the Most High say always come to pass, even much more his oaths and his promises. But anyway, the point here is that now you have a split, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. We've already done, a full 3-part series on that, so we won't go over everything in particular, but the point is that you have to deal with this, because this is part of the promises that we read about. Israel and his seed line would be a nation and a company of nations. So we got to see where that plays out at. Because where did this play out at if, they were together the whole time? They were always considered just one nation of people. So what was the Most High saying when he said a nation and a company of nations? Okay. So now, not only was the kingdom split, we had more stuff going on in that. Let's get 2 Kings. Let's get straight to it. Chapter 17 and verse 23.
The book of 2 Kings, chapter 17 and verse 23. Until the Lord remove Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets, so was Israel carried out, so like it carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day.
That means that Genesis chapter 48 and 4 could not have been, established yet, because Israel was taken out of the land. That's literally what we just read. But this promise here says that this land to thy seed after thee will be given for an everlasting possession. This is not everlasting because it got taken away. So for this, in Genesis chapter 48, for that to come to pass, it has to be everlasting. That hasn't happened yet. So we have to account for that. We got to see, when did that happen, or when is it going to happen? Okay, so right here really quickly in Sirach chapter 49 and 4, you can see that, we all forsake the covenant and the law of the Most High. The only three kings that didn't go all the way off was David, Hezekiah, and Josiah. Okay, even the kings of Judah failed. All right, not just Israel, even the kings of Judah failed, because once you had that split, you had kings of the southern kingdom, or the kingdom of Judah, and then you had the kings of the northern kingdom, or the kingdom of Israel. Okay. So now there's punishments for this. Matter of fact, our people are on punishment right now. It's punishment for sin, especially when you're the Most High's chosen lot. Okay, that's what happened. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Remember this right here. From one end of the earth into the other. Remember that. Okay, but our people got scattered. This is what we call the curses, or this is what the scriptures call the curses. Okay, that would be given to the children of Israel if we did not keep the statute, laws, and commandments. Okay, so it says consequences of disobedience here. In verse 15, it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, or to Yahweh, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. We read that clearly happened, that we did not hearken to his voice. We just read that all the kings didn't. They forsook the law of the Most High. So what happens when you forsake the law of the Most High? You get cursed. At least the children of Israel, that is, because this is all this is pertaining to. Okay, literally, this is written to the children of Israel. Okay. Now, our people were scattered from one end of the earth to the other. Where did we see this play out at? Okay, this is all important. And this is just saying here, Deuteronomy chapter 28. Oh yeah, I had it up here twice, chapter 28. And again, we will be removed from all kingdoms of the earth. All right, now let's get a little bit more. So what have we established so far? You got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were given a promise from the Most High. All right, that they will be put into the land for everlasting possession. We see that from a surface level, we could have fulfilled that prophecy, but we went into sin. Therefore, we had to be taken out of land. At least the northern kingdom got taken out of the land. Okay, so that did not come to pass. Let's get Hosea chapter 3 and verse 4 and 5.
The book of Hosea, chapter 3 and verse 4. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and with teraphim.
So now we see the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king. So we had kings. We wished for a king, but really that was part of our downfall, because all men are supposed to be kings and priests, but we want to have one king. No, we stayed complaining about some, our people did. All right, but now we are, excuse me, we are we are abiding without a king. These are the days we are abiding without a king. Who's the king of Israel right now? Who's the king of our people? We don't have one. We don't have a prince, and we're not performing sacrifices. All right, let's get verse 5.
Verse 5. Afterward shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their power, and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days.
In the latter days, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord. That's happening right now. Okay? The children of Israel are returning, not just in a physical sense. All right, but we returning back to the Most High. But this can't fully happen, because when it says David their king, this is talking about David's seed line being Yahushua, Hamashiach, all right, or who the world calls Christ. All right, this can't happen until he comes back. But still, this is, this prophecy is starting to come to pass. But it says the children of Israel shall return, because remember, we were kicked out of the land for our sin. Moved Israel out his sight. All right, carried away out of their own land to Assyria, which is another foreign, strange land with nasty heathens in it. Now let's get Hosea chapter 13 and verse 9.
It's the book of Hosea, chapter 13 and verse 9. O Israel, thou have destroyed thyself, but in me is thine help.
So here's the thing. Most of the times in church, they acknowledge that the promises were given into the children of Israel, but what they try to say is that, oh, well, that was then, since they sinned, not only in the kingdom, but also when Yahushua came on the scene, since they put Christ to death, that now that blessing has been taken away. We're about to see that's a complete lie too, okay? Because the Most High say, even though you destroy yourself, but in me is thine help, okay? The Most High still got the children of Israel back. Outside of, beside everything that's happening, he's still with us. Let's get verse 10.
Verse 10. I will be thy king, whereas any other that may save thee in all thy cities, and thy judges of whom thou sayest, give me a king and a princess.
Okay, so I will be thy king. All right, let's get verse 12.
Verse 12. The iniquity of Ephraim is bound up, his sin is hid.
All right, so now what we're seeing here is that, Ephraim, when you go through the book of Hosea, it's pretty much showing you how wicked Ephraim, meaning the northern kingdom that got split off, how wicked our people were. Okay. Now that's what we're seeing here. Now, let's finally jump into the New Testament. Okay. Because this whole time we've been going through all this is so we can get to this part. Now let's get some examples of when we see the word Gentiles, what it's really referring to. Okay, now, for the sake of time, let's actually just go straight down here. Let's go to verse 44, because it says right here, Paul turns to the Gentiles. Okay, let's start there. Acts chapter 13 and verse 44.
This is the book of Acts, chapter 13 and verse 44. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of the Most High.
Okay, let's keep going.
But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming.
Now it says, when the Jews saw the multitude, keep this in mind. The word Jew or Jews almost never is referring to all 12 tribes. It's only referring to 2 max. Sometimes Levi is included, 3 tribes, and that's it. So you have to, when you read this, you're not reading when all the Israelites or when all 12 tribes, you're reading about the southern kingdom. So the real beef here is not the all the Israelites and then just all the other nations. It's just the 2 nations that were split. Okay, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. That's it. Now you see it says saw the multitudes. That's what we read about already. Okay, in Genesis chapter 48. And I will make thee a multitude of people. This is referring to, remember, Ephraim means doubly fruitful, or the multitude. This is who the Jews were scoffing at. All right, it was the northern kingdom.
Salah.
Okay, Khan,
Can I get a precept real quick?
let's go.
Isaiah 11 and 13. Just to show that it was envy and they were few, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 11 and verse 13. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim.
Just to show, even they had went to war, started to go to the war against each other in the book of Kings. But just to show that it was feuding between the tribes, between the southern and northern kingdom, and that continued to be in the New Testament, and that's what the brother is eloquently bringing out right here.
God, absolutely. That this was perfect. We needed this, so I appreciate that. That's what's going on here. So, and my point is that we read all of these scriptures here in the Old Testament, and we think that it just went away. So you have to have a careful eye when you read the New Testament, because it's all based on the quote unquote Old Testament. It's just prophecy being fulfilled. Okay, so when you see words, different words, it doesn't mean that, these are completely different concepts. It's the same concepts, the same prophecies being fulfilled. It's not anything different. Okay, so I see a lot of the same words still being used. The multitudes. That's Ephraim is always likened it to being a great multitude. But we're going to get that even more. Let's get verse 46.
It's the book of Acts, chapter 13 and verse 46. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of the Most High should first have been spoken to you. But seeing you put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles.
Lo, we turn to the Gentiles. So is this saying that all the Israelites, all 12 tribes, they were judged to be unworthy of everlasting life? So now we turn to the other nations? Why does it never say all Israel and then the other nations? It always says Jew or Gentile, Jew or Greek, which is just southern kingdom and northern kingdom. But you never see all 12 tribes or all Israel and the Gentiles. Why is that? Where are the other 10 tribes at? Because remember, this promise was into all 12 tribes that we read about from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So where are they at now in the New Testament? Where are they? How can we account for them? They just disappear? Where are the 10 tribes at? Okay, you're reading about it right here. This is what's going on. Okay, when you see we turn to the Gentiles, this is a very simple breakdown, honestly. Let's get a classic. Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 2.
It's the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 2. You know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led.
Okay, you were Gentiles. Okay, when you are in spiritual idolatry, you're considered the same as the other nations, even if you're of the chosen seed line, because flesh cannot save you by itself alone. You also, your spirit also has to be in line with the Most High. All right. You have to become a virgin, what he considers to be a virgin. All right. All that means is that you only can serve the Most High. That's it. Okay. So if you are in spiritual adultery, spiritual fornication, you're considered a Gentile, because that's what the Gentiles do. That's what they expected to do, but not the children of Israel. So when it says we turn to the Gentiles, we turn to the northern kingdom, those that were far off. Okay, let's get verse 47.
Con, the book of Acts, chapter 13, and verse 47. For so hath the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth.
Remember, we read that earlier, the ends of the earth. I told y'all to remember that. Okay, this just links up. I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation to the ends of the earth. Who was pushed into the ends of the earth? Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse 17.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33, and verse 17. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth.
Oh, hold on now. Wait a second. With them he shall push the people together into the ends of the earth. We just read that they should be for salvation to the ends of the earth. But who were these people pertaining to?
And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
That's who the people were. That's the multitude. Okay, that's the Gentiles. That's why this lines up so perfectly. All right, because our people were the ones that were pushed into the ends of the earth. All right, scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth into the other. This was only ever pertaining to the children of Israel. Okay, we were the only people that were prophesied to be scattered amongst all nations into all kingdoms, and shall be removed to all kingdoms of the earth. We were the only nation that was prophesied to do this based on, us not keeping the statute, laws, and commandments from the Most High. Okay, that's all you're reading about. When you read the New Testament, you read about the Gentiles, that's what you're reading about. Okay, it's very simple. Now let's destroy a doctrine really quickly. Let's get Romans chapter 11 and verse 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 1. I say then, hath the Most High cast away his people? God forbid. For I am also an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin.
I said we're going to destroy a doctrine real quick, because they tell you in church that, well, there is the Israelites, they were this, but, they're now cast away. No, they're not. The Most High would never cast away his people. God forbid. Let's get verse 2.
Verse 2. The Most High have not cast away his people, which he foreknew.
So the Most High has not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Okay? There is no new people. It's the same people.
There's no way this can be spiritual Israel as well, because he didn't foreknow a spiritual Israel.
That's right.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, man. People talking about spiritual Israel, man. Romans 9 kills that as well. Like, stop it. There was no spiritual, foreknowledge of any other nation spiritually being a fleshly seed. That doesn't make any sense. Unless your child can, be spiritually somebody else's child or something like that. I mean, does that really add up? Your child spiritually a monkey or something? Come on now. But anyway, the Most High has not cast away his people. Okay, now let's see the same same words being used again. Let's get Isaiah chapter 41 and verse 9.
God, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 41 and verse 9. Thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth,
The ends of the earth, keep going.
and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, thou art my servant. I have chosen thee, and not cast thee away,
I'm gonna cast you away after Christ come back, would you say?
and not cast thee away.
The Most High has not cast away his children
That's right.
to this day. Okay? God forbid. That's why Paul said, I am an Israelite as well. I mean, in the church, they act like this is not even important. So why did Paul say it so many times? Hebrew or Hebrews. You understand? I'm an Israelite. All right, the seed of Abraham. Why would he mention this? Okay, because obviously it was important to him. He just didn't want his people to be overly prideful. Okay, because the Most High sets boundaries. That's what the statute, laws, commandments about. You have boundaries. Okay, it's certain things you can do too much of. Too much of anything pretty much is bad for you. So if you take too much pride in being Israelite, you're going off. However, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to neglect it. You're supposed to be proud of your heritage from a standpoint of, being proud of who you are. And obviously, Paul was the same. But point is, though, Most High didn't cast away his people. Knock it off. Okay. Now let's get Isaiah chapter 46 and verse 10.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 46 and verse 10, declaring the end from the beginning.
So
And
let's get verse 9. Just give a little bit more context.
Verse 9, remember the former things of old, for I am the Most High, and there is none else. I am Yahweh, and there is none like me.
There's none like the Most High. No other entity exists like the Most High. There's nobody else above him. Somebody else over there running plays, running the game, and he don't know about him. Nobody like the Most High. That's why you have to worship him. You got to be in this word, man. Let's get it.
Verse 10, declaring the end from the beginning, and from the ancient times the things that ye are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure.
Declaring the end from the beginning. Genesis is the beginning. He's declaring the end from the beginning right here. In Genesis chapter 48 and verse 4, because this won't happen until the kingdom. When you understand how the Most High work, this becomes clear to you. He gave you the prophecy first, and it just play out here on the earth. And he already knew what was going to happen. All right. From jump, he already knew. And from the ancient times, the times of Genesis, the things that are not done yet, like us being in the kingdom or being in the land for everlasting possession. It's simple. So when you read the New Testament, that's what you're reading about. Okay? That's what you're reading about. And if you really believe, then you also believe this verse here. Let's get Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 11.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 55 and verse 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it.
Okay, so the Most High didn't say all of that in Genesis just so it can go void out of his mouth. It shall not return unto him void. Whatever the Most High say, it just is. Okay, it shall accomplish that which he please. Most High do what he please. Okay, it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I send it. Now, one thing to keep in mind, let's for the sake of time here, I want to kind of get straight to it. Let's get let's just get verse 25. We pretty much made some of the major points here, but let's keep going just a little bit further, just to solidify a few more things, and we're good. Let's get Romans chapter 11, verse 25.
The book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles become in.
Until the fullness of Gentiles come in, from that kingdom that was rent or torn apart or ripped until they come back together. That's the fullness. You can't be full unless you complete. That's the kingdom being completed like it originally was. That's the Gentiles. Okay. How can you be complete or full, something be full that was never put together in the first place? All the other nations in the nation of Israel have never been together, ever. All right. And then when you look at the definition here for fullness, what do you see? Fullness, abundance. All right. In the New Testament, that's nonsense. Hold on, let me see. I'm actually looking for, the fullness. Now, this is what I want. This is what I want, actually. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 48 real quick. And then let's get verse 19.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 48 and verse 19. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations.
His seed shall, and this is talking about Ephraim. Okay, remember, that's why we remember the word fruitful and the word multitude. But truly his younger brother, and that's referring to Ephraim, shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. A multitude. When you look up the word multitude here, what do you see? Fullness. Just like we just read in Romans chapter 11, verse 25. That's what that multitude is, the fullness, being made complete. Fullness, that which fills entire contents. All right. Why is that? Because the children of Israel cannot be complete until both kingdoms, all 12 tribes, are together. That's why it says that in verse 26. Bring that out, please.
The book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written. There shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away the ungodliness from Jacob.
All Israel shall be saved. All 12 tribes shall be saved. That's what Paul is saying. How can he be talking about Gentiles being another nation like 5 words ago, and then now all of a sudden he busts down, he's talking about all Israel shall be saved, because this is all in the same. Okay, that's why he said blindness in part happened to Israel, meaning to the northern kingdom, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. That's why you go into that word there, and it says, in the word in Genesis chapter 48, verse 19, it says fullness. That multitude is the fullness. Let's contrast that one more time. Until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. Let's go back to Genesis 48. Fullness. Okay. It lines up. That's why the same words are used. A multitude of fullness. That represented Ephraim. Ephraim represents the northern kingdom. Okay. Now, I don't want to continue to run over too much, but I got a few more things to bring out. Bear with me. Let's get Romans chapter 2 and verse 10.
The book of Romans, chapter 2 and verse 10. But glory, honor, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile.
So Paul wrote this just like he wrote Romans chapter 11. Why didn't he say all Israel first and then to the Gentiles? Why is it never written like that? Jew is only referring to the southern kingdom or 2 tribes, the Gentiles, the other 10 tribes. Or this, you wouldn't be able to account for them. All right, then this promise that the Most High made in Genesis chapter 48 couldn't come to pass, because the other nation, I mean, the other tribes would just disappear. We can't account for them. All right, but the promises were given unto them too. And his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Where did you see that happen? In the New Testament. That's when you saw it happen. All right. Verse 11, there's no respect of persons with the Most High. He's talking about all 12 tribes. Okay, all 12 tribes are respected the same. Okay, now you have, of course, Judah. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. But as far as respect goes, the Most High loves all 12 tribes. All Israel shall be saved. All 12 tribes, northern and southern kingdom. That's the world that you read about in Genesis. I mean, the book of John, chapter 3, verse 16. That's the world, all 12 tribes. Okay. And lastly, last thing, man. Let's get Sirach chapter 19, Sirach chapter 44 and verse 19.
God, it's the book of Sirach, chapter 44 and verse 19. Abraham was a great father of many people. In glory was there none like unto him.
Verse 20.
Who kept the law of the Most High and was in covenant with him. He established the covenant in his flesh. And when he was proved, he was found faithful.
Verse 22.
Verse 22. With Isaac did he establish likewise for Abraham, his father's sake, the blessing of all men and the covenant.
Okay, so this promises, the promise went from Abraham to Isaac. All right, let's keep going.
Verse 23. And made it rest upon the head of Jacob. He acknowledged him in his blessing and gave him inheritance and divided his portions. Among the 12 tribes did he part them.
Among the 12 tribes, it's all Israel. That's the Jew and the Gentile, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. That's the world, okay? That's a world that should not be confounded or ashamed, that Isaiah talked about in Isaiah 45 and verse 17. It's really that simple. And the reason that you have the Jew and the Gentile, you have them separated, is because a lot of our people, I think this is my last point for real. This is my last point. One thing that we don't realize, at least a lot of us don't, even some of us that know the word, is that you have some of the northern kingdom that never even got the commandments. Okay, this is 2nd Ezra chapter 1, and let's get verse 35.
Book of 2nd Ezra chapter 1 and verse 35, and it reads, your house will I give to a people that shall come, which not having heard of me, yet shall believe me, to whom I have showed no signs, yet they shall do that I have commanded them.
Verse 36.
They have seen no prophets, yet they shall call their sons to remembrance and acknowledge them.
So we have people in the northern kingdom, because you actually had Israelites. If you look at the history, it's hard to have all of one people literally in one place. So like in Egypt, you even had some Israelites that left before the major exodus. Of course, that was literally the vast majority of us, but you had Israelites that never even got the prophets. That's why this says this here. They'd never even seen the prophets, because some of the northern kingdom, they were privy to some prophets, but you had Israelites that never even had the chance because, they weren't even given the word from a certain standpoint. When I say a certain standpoint, they weren't there for the whole time because they had dipped out the land before, but they came back. And that's why you read like in Acts chapter 13, we turn to the Gentiles. And that's why they were so mad, the southern kingdom, because they were in the land the whole time. And then you had a northern kingdom that got put out the land. They coming back and getting the same thing that the southern kingdom that been in the land the whole time was getting. Okay, privy to the same promises. All right, but you know what? That's pretty much it. We already went over. Look, man, the Gentiles, at least for the most part, in the quote unquote New Testament, is only referring to the northern kingdom. If not, all of these promises that the Most High gave Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this would all not be able to come to pass. So just read the precepts, get an understanding, and don't take the Most High's words for granted and think he just talking just to talk. It become clear to you. That's pretty much it. With that, peace and blessing. Shalom.